He actually wrote a book.
Upside down.
Come on now, Bree. Don't do me like that.
Did your mic go out or something? I felt like you said something, but it went silent.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I hear that.
Okay, start over.
Skirt or whatever you say. Y'all, we had so many bloopers that we had to cut out because we just don't know how to act. But I really hope you guys enjoy this interview, and please, please, please go support the book. We want to give a special shout out to Brekeese for being on the podcast. We're really proud of him, and this book is actually really good, so make sure you go and get it, and stay tuned for the very, very end where you can see way more bloopers, and y'all just pray for us.
Hey, Jess.
Hey, Bree.
We have a special guest today. This is Brekeese, my little brother.
What's up? I'm actually big brother, if you want to be honest, but
Okay, that's not
Little big. They say little big brother.
nah, she older. She older. I give her that.
So this is our first interview, and we're super excited that he gets to be our first guest for our first interview. It's called Black King Era.
Right.
Amen to that. Amen to that. We're going to be talking about some topics that you had in your book that you wrote. Actually, I know, fun fact, how many years did it take you to write this book?
4 years, which may sound crazy, but we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Write this book. And so I can imagine, like, as you've grown over the years, the content in the book has grown and developed. So that's a seasoned book.
Most definitely. And it was actually a whole lot that was cut out of the book. I really, based on the stuff that was cut out, I really could publish another book like next week. But I cut a lot of different stuff out, and I wanted this one to be like, I had a certain purpose for this, right? Like the subtitle says, God from perpetual victim to perpetual victor. So I really wanted to push that in this book. And so I used all the things that I felt like was applicable.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's interesting that it's a guide because I knew that the title was Black King Era, and I started reading it, and I was like, this is more like a guide than a book. and then I looked at the title, and I was like, oh, it says guide.
That's right. Yeah, that's real.
But I love that.
Yeah, the first chapter, which was a chapter that I did want to touch on, which is called Poverty Mentality and Hood Culture. That was a really interesting chapter to me. I think the part that stood out most to me, Black children inherit generational wealth instead of generational trauma. I highlighted that part because I felt like that is so true. Like, I agree with that statement because I feel like oftentimes you do hear, like, especially in the Black community, parents, which I think you did touch on in the beginning of the book, parents say how you basically have to get it out the mud. You have to work for what you have. Like, I had to work for it, so you got to work for it. Versus like nepotism, which you often see in white culture, which is on generational, not only wealth, but like putting their kids in position to work for the companies that they worked for, friends that they know that are working for multi-million-dollar companies making 6 figures a year. And so I think is a really good sentence in this book because it kind of sums, in my opinion, majority of the Black culture.
Right. Yeah, and I would say for me, part of the reason why I put that in there, I'm like, when you take into account the years, the decades, and the centuries, right, of the oppression, right, starting with the transatlantic slave trade, being brought over here, the pretty much the country getting free labor on the backs of enslaved people, right, and you take even after that the Reconstruction era, I talk about that in my book too, the Jim Crow era, all of those eras, right, of just constant oppression and pretty much a war against Black wealth, And so I feel like with all those things in mind, I think it's important. Like, yes, Black people deserve to be wealthy. We had Black Wall Street, we had the New Negro movement, we had Harlem Renaissance. You get what I'm saying? Idlewood. We had thriving Black communities that you don't often hear about. They ain't in your textbooks, not K through 12. But they're out there. And so I'm like, let's discuss those as well.
Yeah, I feel like your book had a lot of good topics and a lot of good chapters. But what kind of like inspired you to write it in general? because it said it took you 4 years and you started it in college. So kind
Yes.
of what inspired you to even start it?
Okay, so I started writing this book the beginning of my sophomore year in college, undergrad actually. And I was taking a few English courses. My minor was English in undergrad. And so I was taking an English course and I was also taking a creative writing course, which was also towards the English credit. And we were just doing a lot of different writings, right? And so with the writings we were doing, we had a lot of leeway and pretty much discretion as to what topics we were going to discuss. Like for my English one, I think the final paper I did was about mass incarceration, a private prison system, right? And so with that, I was like, okay, a lot of these things I'm writing, these things really need to be heard by more people. I think these things are very relevant, especially in the Black community. And then also looking, we live in a time of a bunch of influences, right? And I'm seeing everybody got their ideologies, everybody got their thoughts, their opinions, and all those type of things. But I feel like what's really perpetuated and I feel like pushed, right, in major media is really a bunch of nonsense. If I could just be candid, if I could be real, you get what I'm saying? Especially as it pertains to the Black community, I feel like a lot of times we glorify the wrong things and the toxic stuff, the crazy stuff. That's what gets pushed. That's what gets reposted around, But the stuff that's actually gonna build people up, the stuff with sustenance, you get what I'm saying? That falls by the wayside. So I feel like, okay, we got a lot of people out there doing stuff, writing stuff, saying stuff. So I feel like, God has given me purpose too to be able to speak to what I feel like he's placed on my heart.
Were there ever times like writing it that you wanted to stop, or what kind of like pushed you through to finish it? Or was it kind of like full blown, I'm just going to get this done because I'm really inspired about it?
Well, it was taking a little minute. And so after a while, I'm like, am I ever going to be able to get through it? In undergrad, being very involved and stuff on campus, being in college, that could be time consuming in and of itself. I was also working at the time, I also had an online business too. So I was just working on it whenever I could. And what I didn't mention to y'all was that the book actually changed like drastically. When I first started writing the book, it was something similar. It was towards the Black community, but it was really framed in a way to where I feel like now in hindsight was very like pessimistic. You get what I'm saying? And I talk in my book a lot about going from the plight to the power. You get what I'm saying? We talk about the struggles, we talk about all the things we went through. But I feel like at first, 4 years ago, I was just complaining, and oh, we go through this and we go through that. But I'm like, okay, what's the solution? You get what I'm saying? And as time went on, I grew as an individual, as a person. This book literally grew with me within those 4 years. And so I had a different mindset. So it kind of, when I grew as a person, it kind of created like a second wind, within me. I'm like, okay, I'm excited even all the more. Like I just started writing it. You get what I'm saying? Because it had like a freshness to it.
Yeah.
What was your process to be like, oh, I want to write a book?
Well, just all the writing I was doing pretty much in undergrad, I would say. I was doing a whole lot of writing. And so I'm like, they need to be paying me right now to be writing this stuff. So I'm like, I might as well, monetize this pretty much. You get what I'm saying? It's an extra stream of income, and it also could be very purposeful, like I said a little bit earlier. And so that was my main thing. But I if I can, I do have a question for y'all really quick.
Yeah.
So the part about, Black children deserving to inherit generational wealth instead of generational trauma, do y'all see that, within the Black community as well, a lot of with the trauma being perpetuated and sometimes glorified?
Yeah, definitely. Like you mentioned in your book with rap culture, and just it being like a badge of honor to like say you went through it. Like you see like rappers who really didn't grow up like that. Like think about T-Son. I mean, we all know who his dad is, and we know they got money. So we know you didn't grow up in the struggle. But to hire to portray that, like, no, I really grew up like that when I was at my grandma's house. Like, why is that a desire of you to want to showcase that? And people are literally laughing at you because they know that's not your life. So I do feel like it's like people do laugh at you if they feel like you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth versus came from nothing and worked your way up. Which that can be commendable for someone who legit grew up in that and you worked your way up. But
Right.
story, and we shouldn't glorify that and want that to be our story.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it just be kind of backwards a lot of times. You get what I'm saying? Because, like you say, somebody in his, and I don't know him personally, I don't know what his life was, but just from the outside looking in, like you're saying, it does seem like somebody who grew up nice. Both of your parents seem to have money and things like that. But you want this certain life, this come up story, right? And my whole thing is, even as a black people, you know, even for the people who did come up in that environment and were able to change it and do something different, you know, everybody loves an underdog story. But my thing is, we weren't supposed to be there in the first place. You get what I'm saying? We were never supposed to be there. And I didn't mention in my book, but you know, black people, right after the end of slavery, when Reconstruction came in, we were first promised 40 acres, right? 40 acres, we were going to get land. And Abraham Lincoln signed off on it. It was an order. And then, as we know, he was assassinated. And then Andrew Johnson, the president that came after him, he did away with it, right? But for months, those people had went over to the land. It was land from like Florida to South Carolina coast, right? Bunch of land just specifically for black people. Then people went over there to till the land, to see if they could harvest the land, to build a life on the land. And it was like, okay, you know, he overruled the order, and he was like, okay, y'all got to get up out of here. I don't know where you got to go, but you got to get up out of here, pretty much. You get what I'm saying? And so it's like, we weren't supposed to be in that place. And I talk about, even in my book, after the Reconstruction era, you know what I'm saying, you have Jim Crow, where black people, we have like redlining and things like that, and poor quality housing. You have different things in terms of even transportation, and you get what I'm saying, poor quality living overall is what they subjected us to. You get what I'm saying? But that was never supposed to be where we were, especially when you think about the economic power that America has, right? And a lot of that is due to the free labor for over centuries. In my book, I talk about slavery starting in 1619. But the thing about it is, there's even documentation that there were enslaved people over 100 years before that. You get what I'm saying? So with that in mind, I'm just like, it's just the framing. Like it's like it's almost expected for us to be in poverty, or expected for us to be in some type of major struggle. I'm like, I just don't subscribe to that.
Yeah. And even going off of what the hood culture in the chapter that you had, how you said that people can be drawn to it even if they like didn't grow up or weren't raised in it. And so would you say that you kind of, were you ever drawn to it at all? And if not, what do you think was different? Why did you stray away? Was it your environment, your parents, the way you grew up?
Well, I do love rap music. I love all music, and I don't ever believe in demonizing or vilifying rap music, because rap music is broad, is diverse. You get what I'm saying? But a lot of the rap music that I did listen to in high school, right, perpetuating a lot of ignorance. I'm a shoot them, I'm a kill them, I'm a rob them, I'm a stab them, and then more times than not, they talking about somebody that look just like them. You get what I'm saying? They're talking about another black man who come from the same struggle as them. We're talking about struggle. People from the same environment, somebody who literally looks just like them. And so I also went to a school in high school that was pretty. It was wild. I just say that. My mom would call it Fair East Side. If y'all ever seen Lean on Me, you know, it was wild. You get what I'm saying? And so I did learn that your environment really does have a large bearing on in your thoughts and the way you think and the way you operate. Now, thankfully, I was raised with two great parents. You get what I'm saying? That instilled a lot of wisdom and knowledge within me. And I've also been the type of person, I got a mind of my own. So regardless of what everybody else doing, Brekeese gonna do what Brekeese feels is right. You know what I'm saying? But in a sense, though, it still affected me in a sense. It did. Walk around, you know, rapping. Young, everybody love Young Boy. It seemed like a lot of black men in the black community, you know, rapping Young Boy every day, and it sounds good, right? But subconsciously, them lyrics is seeping within my spirit. You get what I'm saying? And it's really changing my perception. You understand what I'm saying? I'm bobbing to the beat. And another one of my chapters called Protect Your Mind, I talk about how, you know, a lot of times we'll drive to school, drive to work, listening to pow, shoot them up, kill them, and then wonder why we ain't having a good day. Wonder why we so on edge. You get what I'm saying? Wonder why we so quick to snap. But it's like, what are you feeding yourself? What are you feeding your spirit, your mind? But kind of going back to your point, this kind of long-winded response. I do understand that people's environment does make a big difference. Even people who weren't necessarily born or coming from that environment, it's kind of intertwined within Black culture. You get what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all seen, but it was what's the food critic Keith Lee, right? He does a lot of food videos, and so he was basically called the hood food critic. I seen an interview and he was like, "Well, no, I'm not a hood food critic, but me, I'm wondering like, okay, what about his videos makes him a hood food critic? Is it because he's Black, or that he's a lot of times eating food from Black establishments? You get what I'm saying?"
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah. Okay, so you feel me on that?
Yeah,
So,
and who interviewed him? Like, who said that?
The Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club, yeah.
Mm.
It was the
But
Breakfast Club.
but that, I feel like that's an example of just us ourselves perpetuating that stereotype on our own people.
Right.
Like it comes from outside of our culture, but it also is like embedded from inside our culture as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's true. And the thing about it, especially with rap music, you seen rap music really take off mainly within like the 70s and afterwards and stuff, right? And a lot of times people were rapping about just the things they were experiencing. They were really trying to just tell their story through their rap lyrics, right? But it has become so ingrained within rap culture so that if you ain't rapping about that, people looking at you crazy. And I was having a conversation with Bree actually, and I was telling her, a lot of times you even see rappers who made it big when they were still young, teenagers or in their 20s. They be 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, right? And if they come out with a mixtape, guess what they're going to be talking about? A lot of the same stuff, right? Because it's a mindset, it's a mentality. And so it's past just telling our story. Now we glorifying it and unknowingly perpetuating the same toxic cycle.
Yeah. So, what was your motivation for that chapter? Because I feel like every chapter touches on important topics, and not just a man's life, but in a woman's life as well. But since that being like your opening chapter, basically, what was your motivation for writing it?
Well, I was like, the people need to hear this. That's the main thing. I was like, folks need to hear this. You get what I'm saying? Because like we say, I just may not want to admit it. Some people may do, but oftentimes, especially as a young person, right, within the Black community, a lot of people do glorify or romanticize the hood, poverty. Some people will clown you for having a father in your household. You get what I'm saying? Or you'll hear people say stuff like, "Oh yeah, we don't play out there. Oh yeah, I'm from Detroit. They got we the murder capital." I'm like, you sound excited. Like, what's going on? You sound happy about that. And when people get mad and they grew up in a certain environment, what's the first thing they say? "Oh, I'm from so and so. I'm grew up in poverty." Pretty much, you can just parading around the things that you were subjected to, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, we were never supposed to be that way. And I talk about in my book, Carter G. Woodson said, if you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions, right? And so a lot of times, the oppressive system, it's a system. It's a system. And so people don't have to worry about oppressing a group of people if they're internally oppressed, right? Where they're perpetuating it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that was one major thing for me. I thought it was very important to just talk about that. I feel it was more than relevant.
Okay. Well, you do.
And I say this too, real quick. For me, if somebody say, okay, so and so born with a silver spoon, I'm like, mine's golden. This is Black King era. If you were king, why would your spoon not be golden? Why would you not be? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's who we truly are, not
Yeah.
what we were subjected to.
Yeah, that's true. It's a privilege to grow up privileged, because I wouldn't even call it spoiled. People like to give it a negative connotation. Oh, you're spoiled, or you grew up spoiled. No, they were privileged because of what their parents decided to sacrifice or do for them, whether they had it or not, in order for them to live a better life in the future.
Yeah.
And I feel like that says a lot about people's parenting, in my opinion. I mean, why would you want your child to struggle? Like, you want the best for them. So, parents going out of their way for their kids or doing things even well into adulthood, I feel like that's a privilege. And that in my opinion, what you should be doing. I have a son, so I know that's what I'm gonna be doing.
Yeah, especially in our community, because when you think about it, them people defeating the odds. When you have a black household that's making it work, you know, that's trying to build or establish generational wealth, you get what I'm saying? They're defeating the odds. And like I kind of alluded to with the 40 acres, I'm still waiting on the reparations because they are due. You get what I'm saying? Just based off the history. So yeah, it's something to be noted and also praised.
One chapter that stood out, it was two chapters because one was a mini chapter. So chapter 7 about women, and then the mini chapter disobedient dating. You talked about your own personal experience with dating someone that you shouldn't have been, and you noticing like the red flags after some time and deciding to move on. But before that, in the chapter when you talk about women, you speak about, which I think is really nicely written, how you outline how to date. Like you don't necessarily just talk about the problem, but then you give a solution, and then you even offer dating options, like going on dates. Like
I like that.
yeah, you list out
Okay.
different dates to go on and how they're been.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. But you want to just expound on your dating history and some nuggets that you've taken from different mistakes you may have made or things that you've grown from?
Yeah, definitely. I guess kind of speaking into what you first started with, was the disobedient dating, the mini chapter. For me personally, I truly learned the importance, right, and the significance of keeping God at the center. You get what I'm saying? The Bible talk about seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything will be added unto you. But a lot of times we seek God when it's convenient. You get what I'm saying? It did say first, seek him first. And so even for myself, I can think of a time where, you know, I knew a young lady. This was in undergrad as well, and we had known each other for quite some years. And I started, you know, saying, "Oh, she's cool. I think she's very attractive. She's a cute girl, and we also have a lot in common, good conversation." And so I started to pursue her, right? And so after time went on, things were going great. They were going better than great. You understand what I'm saying? And so one night we were on the phone. We used to be on the phone all the time. And after we got off the phone, I prayed specifically about her. And the crazy thing about it, this was my first time praying about her. We had been talking for probably about a few weeks. And I was just now praying specifically about her. And I prayed, you know, pretty much, God, I do like this girl. And you understand that I like this girl, but I want you to be at the center of this, right? So if this is for me, bless it. And if it's not, then block it. I'm tell you one thing about that prayer. That ain't
This
no
prayer.
that ain't no that ain't no prayer to play with. People say that, and it's actually true. I'm a living testament to that. And so I went to sleep and I woke up and it was literally like a shift. You get what I'm saying? Like just attack after attack was happening to the what was assumed to be relationship, right? And so, you know, going on like, okay, maybe that's a coincidence. You get what I'm saying? I'm taking it day by day, instant by instant, right? And it just kept growing and growing. It was more and more stuff. Other people were getting involved with, you get what I'm saying? Just like stuff coming out of the woodwork, like against the relationship. And so I noticed too that one thing when we ask God for answers, a lot of times we have our mind made up already, right? And so that's what I did in that particular moment. You know, honestly, candidly, I felt like I knew better, right? Oh, well, no, it ain't. Oh, maybe it's a coincidence. You know, you ask God for a sign, you dodging the mugs. You know, about bust upside the head with a sign, and I'm trying to dodge it. Well, after a while, I also started to get recurring dreams, right? And the dreams will always be very eerie dreams, very like seemingly like demonic dreams, right? And she would be in those dreams as well. And the dreams will always be filled with a bunch of chaos and strife and turmoil, and even times when the police end up getting involved. You get what I'm saying? And so I ended up cutting it off temporarily. Time passed, we got back cool again, and we end up building back up to trying to get a relationship. Like people do this crazy cycle. So to make a very, very, very long story short, the relationship was bound by just confusion, right? The relationship was bound by strife, right? Just a bunch of chaos, pretty much. But I signed up for it. You get what I'm saying? I signed up for it. I was the person who was like, you know, regardless of God told me, regardless of what he revealed for me, this is something I want to do. And I end up paying the price for it.
Okay, I want you to go into that though.
How was
Go
I
into what happened, the last thing that happened that was like, okay, this is years later and
So
before
okay.
you answer that, I just have one question.
Okay,
What was the time period from the prayer to actually like being done?
probably like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
That 2 weeks saw a lot.
Okay.
But that's when I first cut it off. That's what I'm saying. It's a very complex story, and if I told the whole thing, we'll be here for 5 hours. You understand what I'm saying?
But
that's when I first.
one thing I will say, you kept saying coincidence. I've learned with God, nothing is a coincidence. It's all orchestrated. If when your life is in His hands, like
that's right.
It may seem like a coincidence, but nah.
Yeah. Dodging, pretty much what I'm saying, dodging, right? Dodging what I know God revealed to me. I'm like, I pretty much made up my mind. Like we do, you get what I'm saying? Oh, with God, I feel like I know better in this instance. But okay, as time went on, I actually did cut it off completely. But she was like, no, it's not cut off. In her mind, it wasn't cut off, right? And so I made it clear. I cut off all contact. You know, everything needed to be done. I did it. And she would make pages on social media to reach out to me. She'll find my number, had a new number. She'll contact the number, call the number, text the number. I have an online business. She will order from my online business. Just any and everything she can do, right? And I'm just, not engaging with it at all.
You said you were the one.
I ran so, but then it got to the point to where now it's like sending multiple cash app after cash app, finding my cash app somehow, sending cash apps and a whole bunch of stuff, right? Then it got to the crazy point to where I moved from Alabama to Texas, right? And one morning I had a meeting, right, for my mock trial team. And I look on my camera and I see a person at my door. It's like 5 a.m. I'm like, the person got on a book bag. I'm like, okay, maybe this is a high school or something. They might have got the wrong door. Let me tell them they had the wrong door. And then I look a little further. I'm like, oh, that's her in the front of my doorstep, right? And so what ended up having to happen, I went on to the mock trial meeting, but I ended up having to contact the police to make sure that I can make it very clear you are not to contact me. You get what I'm saying? And so it kind of goes back to the dream I was having early on with the chaos and the destruction and the confusion. It was a particular dream that included the police. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And so years later, it's the manifestation of that dream. You get what I'm saying? And so what I could have done was just be like, oh, well, dang, this girl this girl that, which it was a crazy situation, but it really just made me all the more cultivate accountability. Because like Brekeese, from day one, you knew what the Lord had revealed to you, but you did what you wanted to do. And this is the manifestation of what happens when we do what we want to do, when we take God out the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because God can definitely see further than we can. I know in the book he talked about everything was going great. Like no red flags, no nothing. Like it was good. But
right.
God sees deeper than that. So,
that's right.
So we can't rely on ourselves. But in reading that story, I did think about how, everything you said applying to dating and obediently dating according to God's will for your life is important. But looking at it from her perspective, because I'm a female, I just think that's sad. And I think we may know a lot of females who are like that, where it's like, I'm not letting go, like I'm delulu about you, call me Christian, this and that. And you really don't even understand that that's like a tactic of the enemy to keep you stuck on something and take away years of your life from being where you should be with the person you should be with. And I just want to speak to the women that are watching. Don't be delulu, because that's not cute. And you're just allowing the enemy to rob years from you. God is a redeemer for sure, but we do not want to be robbed in our prime when we got this good body and this good hair.
Yeah.
Go meet the right one.
That's real. That's real. And men do stuff like that a lot of times too. And we see that it could be very dangerous, right? But a lot of times what happens is people unknowingly idolize people in relationships. And people, oh, I don't have no idol. But if you put something before God, that's an idol.
It's the
You get what I'm
idol.
saying? And so if you feel like I can't live, I can't go on without this person, then it's time to do some soul searching, right? Because we should never feel that way, regardless of whoever we may have a love for somebody. If somebody chooses to be going about their business, we're gonna have to just trust God in and through that. That you got somebody specifically for me. We can't make people
Right.
idols. So I agree wholeheartedly. And going off your point too, Bree, about the steps about intentional dating, I do talk about like a lot of different things because, you know, we as a people always talk about, oh, I want to do something fun. I'm adventurous. I want to, you know, I want to go rock climbing. I want to go ATV riding for my first date. I'm like, that's cool and dandy, but when you first get to know somebody, it is very important to be very intentional. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
About the dates, about the settings, and about, you know, getting to know this person you're going to be with. And so, like I say in my book, there's a difference between dating somebody and intentionally dating with a purpose because it's more intentionality behind it.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. Because I feel like a lot of times people have the questions of, like, when should I ask this question or when should I ask that question? But really, like, you should ask those questions as soon as possible.
That's real. That's
Yeah.
real. And I'm like, dates too, especially as a man, you know, dating ain't cheap. You get what I'm saying? But it is an investment. I heard somebody say, you end up spending more in the long run, right? When you don't put that time and money and effort into those initial dates, you end up in something where you have to spend more, not just financially, but it's taxing spiritually, emotionally,
Mhm.
physically. You might want to just pay for them few little dates just to see what you're talking about. So you can know whether you need to chug up the deuces or not, you know.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what was your most personal, which that does seem like a really personal chapter, but for you writing it, what was your most personal chapter that you feel like if nobody reads the book, they need to read this chapter?
Our words are powerful all day, every day.
Mm.
Our words are powerful. That, to me, that chapter was, yeah.
Why so?
So in that chapter, just to give a clip glimpse for the people who haven't read it, in that chapter, I talk about two specific things. The main thing I'm talking about is the power of our words, right? I talk about how God literally spoke this world into existence. You know what I'm saying? He spoke it and it was so. You know what I'm saying? And He created us in His image. So He's given us authority and dominion. The Bible says life and death lies in the power of the tongue. You get what I'm saying? And so the first scenario I talk about is when I was in high school and I almost got jumped by like 10 to 15 people. I don't know how many people it was to this day. I know it was like more than 10. Um, but pretty much I had spoke that into existence. It was a real rowdy day. There was a food fight that broke out. And I looked at the people next to me and I was like, I'm going to get into a fight this, but I could just feel it. I'm going to get, like, it was just a lot going on. I'm like, I already know what's going to happen. And immediately after I walked out that cafeteria, somebody decided to start a fight. They decided to antagonize a fight with me, right? And so I didn't know who the person was, so I'm just kind of like confused, like, are you talking to me? And he and not to be funny, he was cross-eyed too. So I was really trying to make sure that he was looking at me. I'm like, sir, I don't know you, man. And so he was looking at me. I had a chain on. He was like, I snatched that chain off you, the whole nine. And so I was like, man, I don't even know you. Then before I know it, it's more people. It's homeboys. They going off too, and they, you know, pulling their pants up. You know, anybody who ever been in an environment like that, you know, pulling the pants up, that means it's go time. And so, and so I'm still walking. I'm just like, okay, I just know nobody better not touch me, you know. And so I'm walking, marching on, and I look back. It's like 10 people directly yelling at me, antagonizing me, wanting to fight, right? And so I'm thinking right now, okay, I might just have to go ahead and turn around and swing first. Now we don't we don't promote no fighting, no violence, right? This was a younger me. I'm like, if I'm going to get jumped, I might as well just take one person, you know, at least. And before I know it, while I'm still thinking, the biggest rush of wind fly past my face, like a mighty rushing wind.
Oh wow.
And I look at the wall in front of me and fruit splattered. It was like an orange splattered on the wall. Oh, the way that orange just grazed the side of my cheek, these people really want to take me out. But in hindsight, when I looked back, I'm like, I literally spoke that into existence because right before I left that cafeteria, I looked at the people next to me and I said, I am going to get into a fight. And right after that, it sealed the deal and manifested within the natural realm. You get what I'm saying? Even though I had that thought, somebody may say, well, maybe you just knew it, maybe you just could feel it. Even if that was the case, I have the authority, right, as a human being, as a man of God, as a person, to say, no, I'm not going to get into a fight. I have the authority to speak back to that thought, right, and bring it captive, subject to what I feel like God is telling me. You get what I'm saying? But I agreed to it. And so after I agreed to it, boom, there you go. And I say in my book,
Go.
but I say in my book, I didn't get into a fight that very moment. But I had a lot of close encounters right after, and I did ultimately get into a physical altercation, like not too many days after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
And just to clarify, I wasn't calling them students demons. I'm just saying you came in agreement with the spiritual realm, and they said,
That's
okay.
right. That's real.
yeah.
What you saying, Jessica?
I was going to say, I just think that because you do have a chapter about, I think it's guarding your mind.
Yeah.
And I feel like that it's just so important, even though when it comes to being careful about the words that you say, because it all starts with the thought.
That's
In
right.
that chapter where you were like, I don't want to share too much, but where you were talking about
Let's
the sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And how your mom said the next time it happens, call on the name of Jesus.
Yes,
And like
Lord.
the first 2 times you couldn't say it, but you could think it.
That's right.
Then the third time you were able to speak it. But it all started with the thought, like the mind.
Yes.
And that's why it's like so important to guard, because whatever you think, it's eventually like going to come out in one way. If it's your actions, what you're saying, like guarding the mind is so important.
That's real. Yeah, that's exactly right. It goes hand in hand. I'm glad you say that because it does go hand in hand. And even when I was writing, I was kind of thinking that as well, the protecting your mind and also the words that you speak. You get what I'm saying? They do go very hand in hand. And I think too, we live in a day and age where people are so wasteful with their words, or so negligent with or reckless with the words that they speak, right? And so, something funny. A lot of times people declare, "Oh, I'm dead." You get what I'm saying? And it seems like it's just cool and fun, something to say, but you don't understand you're actually speaking that over you don't understand the power of your tongue. You get what I'm saying? You just saying anything. And we even in a time now where people are declaring that they demons as something positive. I'm a demon, I'm a demon. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's very concerning. Be careful of what you say, be careful of what you speak. Our words do have power. And I do want to say this really quick. Bree, you can testify to this, but growing up, what do you have to say every morning, Bree, on the way to school?
We said our affirmation. Before affirmation was a TikTok trending thing, my mom came up with the affirmation for us to say every single day, and it is, I am smart. How does it go?
I'm smart, I have a teachable spirit, I have the power to gain natural and spiritual knowledge in the name of Jesus.
Yep, and I became smarter. I kid you not. I became smarter. I got transferred into, that's when I started going into advanced and AP classes after saying that every day. I think I started saying that in the 2nd or 3rd grade, 5th grade. They said I was testing high. So words do have power. Well, not only naturally, but spiritually. So
that's right.
My baby gonna be saying that when he turns high.
No, that's real. And when you were a little kid, you thinking like, it wasn't harmful or irritating to say it, but as a little kid, you don't truly understand the importance. You're like, why are we saying this every day? But it's literally carried me. You get what I'm saying? Through kindergarten to 5th grade, to middle school, to high school, undergrad, I was still saying it. And it's brought me all the way to law school. You know what I'm saying? Still learning, still thriving, still. When it was a certain time in elementary school where the teacher was saying, no, he ain't going to be able to, no, he's behind. My dad was just talking about this story the other day. Oh, he's behind. I don't think he's gonna be able to keep up. The first day of class, some lady, she just know I'm gonna be behind. The first day of class, right? But my mother spoke over us. My father spoke over us, and they made us speak over ourselves. And it created a difference. And we're now even seeing the glory of what was spoken years ago. You understand what I'm saying? So it ain't nothing to play with. We got power, we got authority, we just gotta exercise it.
Right. Right. That's true. Words are very powerful. Looking at another chapter when you talk about the victim mentality,
Mhm.
um, do you feel like victim mentality is something that is like innate or learned?
Maybe both, in a sense, right? And I'll explain. I talk about in the book how I would venture to say it's natural to complain. When you go through things, when things arise, I think it is very natural to complain. And I'm not one of them type of people who feel like people should never talk about what they going through, because sometimes it's healthy to blow off steam and you need to acknowledge what's going on before you can overcome it, right? But we're talking about a perpetual sense of just complaint with no solution. You get what I'm saying? And just I can't do nothing about it. You pretty much in a corner, you down in the dupe, you can't do nothing. So in that sense, I would say that it is innate, right? It's something that you have to actively and intentionally overcome. But environment does play a factor as well. It's kind of like that nature versus nurture thing. It's a little bit of both, to be honest. You know, if you're in an environment where everybody around you complains, or if you're in an environment where you're oftentimes victimized, it's not to say you just made up a story, like you actually have been through a lot of things. It's easy for That's actually how the enemy works. He uses that to keep you stuck in that place. You get what I'm saying? Not thinking you can get no way out because you're just used to failure after strife after strife. You understand what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a little bit of both, I would say. What do
Yeah.
y'all think? I want to know y'all opinion.
Um, Victim mentality, in my opinion, I feel like it's something that's like a learned behavior. People could just have this that spirit on them where they're just always a victim, but I feel like it's a learned behavior because sometimes you don't even people can grow up in poverty and not even feel anything about it because it's so it's what they know. But you
Mhm.
hear
Yeah,
people saying, "Oh, that's so sad, y'all don't have no hot water," or "Oh, you ain't get no new shoes this year." Then
yeah,
you start to like be like, "Oh, that is bad," or
yeah,
"Well," you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
I even think about it at work sometimes when I'm doing certain projects and things like that. People be like, "Oh, I could never have that client, they want too much," and I'm sitting up here doing it with no problem because I don't know no different. I don't know how your
yeah,
clients are. But then I'm thinking like, oh wow, I got a heavy workload. I got too much going on. When really I was okay with it until you brought your 2 cents into it or said what you said.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me it's mostly learned because you
okay,
don't necessarily realize that they may be in a lesser situation.
right. I feel
Yeah.
that. What you think, Jessica?
I think I would agree as far as it being learned a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. Um, yeah, I would say yeah, it can be learned. I think that's why it's really important though for you to be aware of the people in the company that you keep.
Definitely.
Because a lot of times, like you said, that you could be doing something at work and you'd be fine, and then like people will put their own insecurities and their own fears and stuff on you. And if you like don't recognize it and kind of like cast that down or whatever, it's easy for you to be able to now fall victim to what they feel like is troubling them. So yeah.
That's right. Now, for me, specifically in the book, a lot of times when I'm talking about victim mentality too, I talk about the metaphor of pretty much relationships, right?
Mm.
And whether that be friendships, whether that be family members, or really mainly romantic relationships. And so a lot of times people will get in a relationship with somebody, right? Similar to the story I just told, ignore the red flags, or maybe you do notice the red flags, just disregard them. You know what I'm saying? And then it doesn't work out. We live in a time where everybody loves to talk narcissists. That I'm tired of hearing that. That's the only word people know. Narcissists get everybody narcissists, everybody gaslighting. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the thing about it is there are narcissistic people out there. And so the thing, what would happen is somebody would be in a relationship with a person who was a narcissist based on their own diagnosis. They say the person is a narcissist. And then they get out the relationship, right? You ask them, oh, what happened when you were so and so? They dogging them, oh, they narcissists, they blah, 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 blah. They get in another relationship, X amount of days, weeks, seconds later.
Seconds.
It's going good initially, and then they fall off. Oh, what happened with you and so and so? Oh, they was a narcissist. Another one. This we on number 2 now. You understand what I'm saying? Then they get into another relationship. They get into another relationship. That don't work out. You ask them what happened. Oh, it's a narcissist.
They're the
At
common
some point,
denominator.
3 times is a charm. Y'all know that. At some point, you got to be able to look in the mirror. Because I'm not saying there's not narcissistic people out there, but we have to be accountable for what we allow. I say in my boundaries chapter that people treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. And that is the truth. You get what I'm saying? And so if you just sit up with the same mindset and just complain, you're going to always attract narcissists. You're going to always be with narcissistic people until you understand, well, maybe I need to look in the mirror. Maybe I need to, evaluate my self-worth, my self-esteem, and what I allow. You get what I'm saying? I think that's very important. A lot of times people fail to do that.
Yeah, that is true. Being in relationships, sometimes we have to take accountability for our choice. So we weren't necessarily a victim in the situation. I mean, granted, people can flip a switch and become a different person.
That's true.
But a lot of times, just like what you mentioned about going on dates and being intentional about it, and
dating
people in different settings, you should be looking for things like that.
Yeah, properly vet. Because I'm gonna tell y'all this: people may think they slicking by, but if you're around somebody long enough, they can't help but reveal themselves. At least at some times, the true them. You understand what I'm saying? Especially if you're intentional. People manipulate us, but ain't nobody that smart. They, you get them at a certain downtime, and you around them in a certain situation, like I talk about with the intentional dating, certain environments, certain settings, you'll see different parts of their character. You understand what I'm saying? And so this is the thing about it too. When you actually do that work that's needed, take personal accountability and work on what you allow, work on what you want and demand out of a relationship, because you know that you can also reciprocate that. Then you don't got to worry about that, because a lot of times you don't even have to probably vet a narcissistic person out. They ain't gonna want nothing to do with you. Boundaries. You got boundaries. You got standards. You ain't letting me do X, Y, and Z. Oh, no, she's doing too much.
Yeah.
Doing too much. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. When I be talking to people, I be looking at stuff like, who's your favorite artist? Because I feel like that tells a lot about a person. If Future is your favorite artist, I'm sorry, you're a cheater. You got a different type of mindset I can't deal with. No, seriously, like I be the favorite artist. What's your favorite song? Your favorite movie? Who's your favorite actor? Like you had mentioned about colors, things like your favorite color and stuff like that. But look for like the meaning behind those things, because there's a reason why you like that artist. There's a reason why you like that type of music. There's a reason why you like this type of activity or sport, whatever. Like just looking at stuff like that. And I'll be looking at them friends too, because if all your friends ain't nothing, it's highly not likely that you are just the best thing walking.
Friends, family, associates, all that is something to look at, because it make a difference long term. And when we first get in a relationship, we feeling like, oh, I can overlook it. But after a while, that stuff, it get irritating after it's 5 years and they already get on your nerves, and then you got to deal with family and friends too. Yeah, it can be a lot. So, it's just something to keep in mind. I think it's very important just to be able to take accountability, even in instances where we were the victim. Make sure we're not a victim again next time. That's my only thing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, it's hard for people to take accountability for stuff because, as humans, we do a lot of times want to be right. You get what I'm saying? And so when we have to acknowledge and recognize that in a situation or circumstance, we can be wrong, it kind of like can really affect our ego in a way to where we're like, okay, what does this mean about me as a person? You get what I'm saying? But I think the important thing is that we're all human. So you're never going to be 100% right 100% of the time. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of times too, we'll deal with people. This could be a friendship, a coworker relationship, whatever. And we'll say, well, I don't care. I know my intentions were pure, so I don't feel like I did nothing. And so I have a chapter in my book called Intention versus Impact. And so a lot of times in communication, right, and in conflict, we get mad because we feel like my intentions were pure. And they're taking what I'm saying or what I did out of context. But I said you also have to account for the impact of your decisions, not just the intention, right? And I also bring about, I'm currently in law school. I took a criminal law class, which is something I'm very interested in. In the criminal law, killings are categorized in 2 different categories, right? It's either murder or it's manslaughter. And murder, that's an intentional killing. That's with malice of forethought, right? But manslaughter, specifically involuntary manslaughter, that could be criminal negligence. You get what I'm saying? You don't have to have an intention, but it's based on your impact, based on what occurred. You still have to give an account in the legal system of what happened. So similar to that, sometimes our intentions were great, our intentions were pure, but if the impact of our decisions, our actions still hurt somebody or cause harm, sometimes we need to be accountable for that as well. If I step on your toe, Briannica, with a size 13 Timberland boot on, I got big feet. I didn't mean to do it. I was rushing out the door. But if your doggone toenail hanging off your toe, I probably need to apologize for that.
Yeah.
I probably need to take ownership for that.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
go got feet down.
Exactly.
So you there was a chapter that I liked. I believe it was managing your emotions.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you had made a comment about how a lot of times people will put more weight into their IQ versus their emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think you said that, what is it? Hold on a second here. How your emotions and your triggers are your responsibility.
Yes.
That was a takeaway. I thought
Yes.
that was like really important because I think that a lot of times people can like even when you go back to trauma, right? People say, "Oh, I do this or I do that because of this." And I think a lot of times like we have to realize that that can be an explanation for what you do,
Right.
but not always an excuse, and we have to
Yeah.
like take that responsibility. But my question for you would be, do you feel like you've always like been emotionally intelligent, or has that been a journey for you?
Definitely a journey. Not at all. I ain't gonna never sit up here and lie to y'all like Bria tell you that's a no. But I will say I've always had the mindset of I've never been the type of person that's just easy to fly off the handle. That's never really been my character, right? But I was the type of person to where I would let stuff build up and fester. You get what I'm saying? And so then I would feel justified in my display of anger or lashing out because I let so much build up. Going back to personal accountability, that was me who suppressed it. That was me who didn't address it when it needed to be addressed. You understand what I'm saying? So one of the main things I really hone in on in that chapter you're referring to, managing emotions, is not to suppress your emotions. You get what I'm saying? Because some people feel like if I'm managing my emotions, I'm just not gonna fly off the handle. But if you're still feeling that internally and you didn't address it, then you're not managing your emotions, and it causes harm long term. I don't know if anybody ever heard the phrase "stress kills," but it's true. A lot of times these things can manifest within your body and your health. You get what I'm saying? If you hold it and harboring onto stuff, I talk about the homicide rates of Black men specifically. I say that we're killing each other at a disproportionate rate. And some people seriously don't want to talk. We listen to the songs about it all day, but somehow we still don't realize that it's a thing going on. And I feel like a lot of that is due to the fact that men are oftentimes brought up, told to suppress their emotions. Oh, just be a man, man up. You get what I'm saying? And so I do feel like as a man, you get what I'm saying, as a leader, there's a certain way to conduct yourself. And like I said, you should manage your emotions, but that don't mean to ignore it. That don't mean to suppress it. That don't mean to act like it's not there, because guess what? That creates later down the line somebody who's emotionally unavailable to their wife. It creates somebody down the line who's emotionally manipulative a lot of times. Somebody down the line who's triggered easily and lashing out off of every little thing. Killing, back to the homicide rate. Killing themselves. When you talk about the suicide rate. You know what I'm saying? But we'll say man up and just leave it at that. What he supposed to do with what he feeling?
Right.
Sex, drugs, fighting, anger. It's gonna come out one way or another.
Yeah.
I feel like we as a community have a responsibility to make sure that we're teaching young boys and young girls not to suppress their emotions, but teach them how to properly manage it. But it's hard to do. Well, mom and daddy don't know how to manage their emotions either. Your grandma, you make her mad, she gonna throw something at you. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's been generations worth of however I feel, I'm gonna express it whatever way I feel. It's causing strife, it's causing turmoil down the line. So I feel like we just need to be more intentional about how we properly manage our emotions.
Yeah. I feel like it's important to say there's a lot of people that don't know how to manage their emotions in jail.
Yeah, that's right.
It can really cost you a lot in life.
It can.
Think about, because I always wonder, like, how do moms, harm their children and then have to end up in jail behind that?
Yeah.
But if you never know how to manage your emotions from a young age, like I told a group that I was in this weekend, just like they say, marriage brings out trauma and different things you haven't dealt with. Being a parent does that as well. So if you
Yeah.
don't know how to manage your emotions and you're trying to teach a child that and they frustrate you, you end up on Channel 5 News because you don't know how to manage your
Yeah.
emotions. Kids
That's
can,
right.
they can be stressful at times, but that's them also not knowing how to manage their emotions and looking to you to teach them.
Yeah.
So it can be dangerous not managing your emotions.
That's real. And it's easier said than done. In the book, I do talk about some steps in terms of like making sure you acknowledge what you feel. You get what I'm saying? That's one of the first steps I say. Acknowledge the emotion first and then
Yeah.
identify the trigger. Because a lot of times, we live in a time where everybody like they get mad. The first thing they say is, I don't care. Oh, I don't care. That don't make me know, never mind. Or everybody want to be unbothered. That's trending. But like you are bothered though. We can see it in the way you acting. You won't shut up about it. You are bothered. You do feel some
Yeah.
type of way. So why not just acknowledge it and be truthful so that way you can deal with it and overcome it? You get what I'm saying? So I think it's very important to acknowledge it, and it's also important to find healthy outlets. You get what I'm saying? For a lot of men, it's playing sports or working out or talking to somebody that you trust, journaling, writing down your thoughts. I think it's very good because you can envision actually what you felt. You release it, put it on that paper, and then you can properly move on. Speaking
Yeah.
to somebody, in the Black community, it's still kind of stigmatized mental health and speaking to a mental health professional. You get what I'm saying? Things like that. Talking to somebody that you can trust about what you've been experiencing. I think that's also important too.
Yeah, and adding to like you being able to say acknowledging what the emotion you're having, because
Mm-hmm.
you made a point in the book that was really good that a lot of times a lot of emphasis is put on, oh, they're emotional because they're crying or because they're like sad, but there's so many other more emotions for somebody to be considered emotional. Like somebody that always lashes out or is always angry, are they not emotional because
Yeah,
they're not crying?
yeah.
So that was
Speak
a
on
really
it.
good that was a
No,
really
that's
good point that you made.
no, I appreciate that, and you do raise a good point with that because that is very true. A lot of times I say as men too, we feel strong, we feel macho if we yelling or if we, you get what I'm saying.
Mhm.
If we get upset and we start tearing something up, we feel like we just did something. But it's like, man, you're being emotional. A child does things like that. You get what I'm saying? That to me, that's a lack of emotional maturity. And
Which
so
is
just
crazy
mhm,
because a lot of men, you think that they're always like, well, not all of them, but it's a stereotype that men don't wanna be emotional.
right,
But in reality, some of the things that you're expressing,
yeah,
you actually
you actually are.
are
It's manifesting
more emotional
differently.
than you think.
That's real. You actually are being very emotional. It's just manifesting differently. You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so you so scared. You can't nobody see you cry. But I'm like, man, you don't know how to control yourself because you get mad. The first thing you do is yell, break something, be ready to fight. Man, you're very emotional, bro. And there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with being emotional, but when you don't know how to properly manage it, that is a problem.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be hard to lead a household or family or future or any type of community or people if you don't know how to properly manage your emotions. Because just this thing called life, people gonna get on your nerves. Jessica, Bree, my sister. We didn't got on each other's nerves a lot growing up.
Yeah.
People is gonna get on your nerves. That's just a part of life. But you have to know how to properly deal with people. And one thing I want to say too is understand that you don't have to acknowledge everything. Understand you
Yes.
don't have to respond to everything or every argument you're invited to, every discourse or debate. Because sometimes you can feel when somebody's spirit is just like I can already see you just want to go there.
Yeah.
You don't have to engage.
Just thinking about boundaries in general and how, um, I don't know, I've just been thinking about, like, boundaries with friendships
Okay.
because I was talking to someone recently about their friends, and it's like, when do you draw the line between because, we have different friends and
Yeah.
friends that we may go to for different circumstances or depending
Right.
what the situation is. But I think that sometimes you just have to be aware, like we said before, of the company that you keep. And sometimes people can keep people around them for the sake of they feel like they're the positive role model in their life,
Yeah.
or they're making the positive impact for them.
Yeah.
However, I think sometimes like they can rub off on you
That's right.
without you really realizing it. And
That's
it's
right.
not always like the most dramatic thing, but maybe they're a negative person
Yeah.
and you don't see it, but it's rubbing off on you a little
Yeah.
bit. Um, like this person is always anxious
Right.
out of nowhere. Like now you're starting to feel anxious. Just
Yeah.
being, I don't know. I've just been thinking about you just having to be careful about the people that you keep around you, even though you feel like you're the positive impact
Yeah.
in their life. But it's like, where do you draw the line
That's right.
between wanting to help someone and still guarding yourself and making sure you're okay?
Yeah. That's right. I know the Bible even say you walk with the wise and become wise. When you surround yourself by foolish people,
Mhm.
that's your portion. That's what you're gonna be. You get what I'm saying? And I do understand that because a lot of times I think you said something very important. You say you have like different friends for different things, right? There
Mhm.
is different levels of friendship, which I don't feel like people acknowledge enough, right? There's different levels. Um, but nevertheless, even at the smallest level, it's still very important to be cognizant of who you surround yourself with. And people should
Right.
always have boundaries in place so that then you're not just going for any and every old thing. You get what I'm saying? Because if you don't set the
Mhm.
parameters for your life, other people gonna do it for you. And it's
Right.
gonna be wide as the 40 acres that we were supposed to get. You understand what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's real
Let
though.
letting folks slide, they started figure skating and rollerblading and roll bounce and all that. So that's right though. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. And in the chapter about boundaries, I talk a lot too about setting expectations for the future, right? I talk about understanding what your boundaries are, communicating those boundaries, and then setting expectations for the future. Because a lot of times people would just say something, right? But if you don't set that expectation for the future and the person disregards the boundary, it's kind of on you because you didn't make it clear like, okay, going forward, this is how we're gonna deal with each other. Or we going forward, we're not gonna be able to have conversations about X, Y, Z. You get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Specifically, that's a boundary. So I think it's just that's part of being intentional. I don't think people do
Right.
that enough. And then
Yeah.
I also have after that, govern yourself accordingly. Now for the friend that may complain, this may or may not be different. But a lot of times we have people in our lives who is doing God knows what. You get what I'm saying? And you can end up in a crazy situation just on having a friend that's involved with crazy stuff. A friend doing something illegal. Or you got a friend who run off at the mouth all day and now y'all in Buffalo Wild Wings finna get in a bar fight because they don't know how to be quiet. You get what I'm saying? And so I do say govern yourself accordingly. Sometimes people will set a boundary, but they don't never enforce it.
Mhm.
I say it's no point in creating a boundary if you're just going to allow people to keep violating it. Sometimes you do have to evaluate and then reevaluate relationships and then deal with people accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing you talked about was wisdom and kindness
That's
when setting
real.
boundaries. And that's important because sometimes people can be mean with their boundaries.
That's right.
And it's important to remain kind because you're
Yeah,
setting boundaries for a purpose. So
that's
I like how
right.
you touched on that, as well as being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Not pleasing people. Wrong. I thought you called yourself a fool, but you said you was dead wrong.
That too. That too.
Yeah, because you were being a people pleaser. And so,
Yeah.
like with boundaries, what do you think? When do you think boundaries are needed? And I guess we will talk about friendships because that's
Okay.
what you mostly talk about with your classmates.
In every aspect. Sometimes every boundary don't need to be communicated. It's kind of
Mhm.
counterintuitive because I just said you need to communicate the boundaries. But if you walk around every 2 seconds, oh well, now I'm not. I know you all aren't drinking, but I'm gonna tell you now I'm not drinking because I don't agree with just just doing any and everything. Sometimes you don't have to necessarily express every boundary off rip, right? As long as you know what the boundary is. But I think boundaries are always needed in every aspect within the friendship because, like I say, friendships can wear on you too. You get what I'm saying? The wrong type of friendship, definitely. It can wear on you. It could cause you strife, stress, all that type of stuff. So it's important to have boundaries in every aspect. Even like I think too with work, a lot of people need more boundaries in their work life and work environment. They let they bosses walk all over them, their coworkers walk all over them. They put up with any and everything, no boundaries. They stay late, leave early, and then with nothing to show for it, they come ask for a raise and got documents of things they done. They're like, get out my office, and you just you just putting up with it. In every single aspect of life, I feel like you need boundaries to some regard. And Bree, similar to what you were saying, it's not an excuse to be rude. It's not an excuse to be mean. I talk about always showing honor, even when you express your boundaries to people. You get what I'm saying? If you do have to go to the point where you totally cut people off or totally leaving the job or whatever, always do it with honor. Always do it with dignity and grace. Don't Boundaries are not an excuse to be disrespectful to people. That's what the boundaries are for. It's supposed to keep you sane. It's supposed to keep you righteous.
Right.
Not, so.
Just an example, I think about people who say that they set boundaries with their parents in their adult years. And oftentimes, in my opinion, when I see it, it's kind of disrespectful. It's like, oh, I'm just setting a boundary. Yeah. But really, you're kind of just disrespecting your parents and kind of pushing them to the side because you still have whatever childhood trauma. How would you say to navigate parent and adult relationship, not adult, well, adult child, parent and adult child relationship with wisdom and kindness and setting those boundaries?
Those are definitely needed, especially depending on what type of parents you have. I was just having a conversation with my mother the other day, and I was giving her and my dad their flowers. I was telling them, for me, transitioning from a child to a teenager and then from a teenager to adult, I felt like that they did well in allowing that transition to go smoothly. You get what I'm saying? As an adult, they don't treat me like they did when I was 12 years old. You get what I'm saying? They respect me as an adult, and I respect them still as my parents. You get what I'm saying? But it's still very important to have boundaries as an adult with your adult parents. But you don't want to cross the lines of being like just rude and disrespectful. You get what I'm saying? But I do want to speak. Now, there's some people who have parents who are abusive. Physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, all of that, right? And so I'm not one of those type of people who feel like just because somebody is whoever to you, that you have to just put up with any and everything. I ain't saying don't never talk to your parents. Depending on the type of dynamic they have. Now, if your parent is physically abusing you and all that, that's a different story. But sometimes even with a parent as an adult, you have, okay, mom or dad, we gonna just be able to have, we ain't gonna be able to talk about this, you know what I'm saying? Or money. We're not gonna be able to discuss finances specifically because just the way that they think or the way they try to control your finances, or mom or dad, especially if you building a family, this is my family, right? That I'm building. And I respect you as my father, I respect you as my mother, but my main priority is the family that I'm creating, the generation that's coming after me. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes it's important to lay that law down, but still be respectful. Now, if you got, like I'm saying, a crazy type of parent who's abusive or manipulative, they're going to get mad regardless.
Right.
They're going to get mad anyway, right? But it's still very important to be respectful, but also be stern in what you're saying. Stand firm in it. You get what I'm saying? That, to me, that what makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, ending off the book, you have this conclusion portion where you basically say a prayer for all those who are reading the book. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was very sweet. And I thought that it was very good as well, because, I mean, in reading this book in itself, we're like learning, growing, we're feeding ourselves. And to be able to, I feel like, recite this prayer to you. It's a long prayer, so I'm not going to quote it. But to be able to just read this prayer and recite it to yourself every night.
Like I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. I was like, this is like something, if you had the book to read, like daily, praying that over yourself.
Yeah. Because it touches chapter to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I will say, I had already made up my mind when I had finished most of the manuscript that I was going to close it off with a prayer. But it took a while before I actually wrote it out. because I wanted to be in prayer. You get what I'm saying? And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't me speaking, but that it was pretty much God. You know the need of your people. You know what I'm saying? You know the need of whoever's going to be reading this. So speak through me in this prayer. And so that was one of the main things that I kept in mind when I did end up actually writing the prayer. Like I said, I had to pray myself before I could even pray that prayer. And I do love it too. I still look back over that prayer myself.
Yeah, it's a really good prayer.
Yeah.
And in the prayer you do say him, because I understand this is a Black King error.
Yeah.
Geared towards men, but I do feel like it's a good read for women as well.
Yeah.
Because it does teach you about dating, how to date, the type of man you should be looking for when dating. And then it just gives you some good life tools when it comes to different things like boundaries and your intentions and mindset, really different things like that, the words that you speak. So I do think this is a good book for women as well.
Yeah, and confidence is very important. So if you're struggling with confidence, I would urge somebody to read the chapter on confidence, because it's a really good one. Because me myself, I haven't always had a lot of confidence. Old me wouldn't even thought about writing no book or putting myself out there to that extent. You get what I'm saying? But it took growth, it took learning, it took God, you know what I'm saying, building me to what He already placed inside of me and me operating in that. So yeah. And I do want to say real quick, now you showing the book. I appreciate that. I love the book, and even
where can it be found?
It can be found on Amazon. Now this is the paperback copy, but soon the digital copy will be out too, probably early next month. And then I'm also going to be having a Audible copy as well. So later on, a few months down the line.
And one thing I will say, if you are dating and you want your man to get right, you can buy him this book. And pray that it changes his mindset. You can even pray the conclusion prayer over him and yourself.
That's real. That's real. And I want all the kings to go out there, the future kings, the kings who want to be kings, who feel like you're a king. This for you, right?
Yeah, people and it's age appropriate. So I'd even say is like 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's not a hard read at all. It's not.
That's right. And one thing I will say really quick, I love about this cover. I actually dreamed about this cover. Of course, I knew what I wanted the title and the subtitle to be, but I dreamed this yellow book. And the crown was upside down. I knew I wanted a crown, but I didn't know I wanted it upside down. Then I looked up what does upside down crown mean, and it's about overthrowing current authority and power structures. You get what I'm saying? It's really about a new route, freshness, newness. You get what I'm saying? So we taking a different route. We're doing things different. It's all about innovation, growth, development, the whole nine.
Yeah, amen. We prophesied a revival from this book.
That's right. Now that's real.
Mindset in the kingdom with men and women, because it's it'll make you think and change your perspective on things. So prophesy that.
I do want to say too, though, I really appreciate y'all for having me on this spectacular, phenomenal, exuberant podcast.
Of course.
I appreciate that. And I watch y'all a lot, and I think what y'all doing is awesome. It's very purposeful, and I want y'all to continue to do it. You get what I'm saying? Because it's having a lasting impact, even far beyond what you can see. You get what I'm saying? God didn't already orchestrated everything for this podcast. So just continue to do it. It's very purposeful.
Amen. We receive it. Thank you for being our first guest. We're honored to have you. And congratulations on your book.
Appreciate it.
Do you want to tell the people where they can find you on socials?
Yeah. Actually, Black King Era on Instagram. I got a community page where I post a lot of positive things, a lot of the same things from this book. Interactive posts. They're not just about wisdom. They're also just about fun posts. They're also just posts to make you think. So check that out, Black King Era on Instagram.
And we will be going live. We'll be having a live on TikTok. So you can follow the CuteConvos podcast TikTok account. And we'll be going live with Brekeese on his platform. And we'll be discussing the book more in depth and just having open conversation. We'll probably allow some people to come up and give their thoughts and inputs on the topics. And we just encourage people to go read the books so you can contribute to the conversation that we'll have on the live.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever heard my sister say Brekeese. That was funny. I say that.
So thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. We hope that you were able to get something out of it. Be sure to grab Black King Era on Amazon, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Where are you going, sweetie? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as well as head on over to our lovely TikTok at CuteConvos, and don't forget to follow. See you next time.
You gonna do your little brother like that?
What's that?
Guys, pause. Sorry.
I don't. This is how it works. Was, let me find it. Black children deserve inheritance. Sorry.